I am Halli Casser-Jayne, and welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, where along with my partner in politics, veteran White House correspondent Matthew Cooper, we slice, dice, all things politics, and some days, Donald Trump, too. On this episode of the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, we begin with the Democratic Party's virtual convention, the Obamas and their groundbreaking speeches, the Clintons, and how did Joe Biden do as he met the moment he has long waited for? As COVID-19 continues to ravage the nation and Trump declares teachers essential workers, school districts open and quickly close. But the surprise of the week? The indictment of Trump crony and one-time senior advisor Steve Bannon. When will Trump see the inside of the pokey? And we're just beginning in our weekly take on all things politics. Oh boy, hold on to your hats. Here we go. Welcome, my friends. Here's where we are this week. We reached yet another milestone at our weekly event. There are more than 5.59 million cases of COVID in the United States, the largest amount of cases in any country worldwide, more than 174,000 dead. That's over 1,000 deaths a day. In other words, one American dying every minute from COVID, they tell me. Yet schools are opening across America, right? And we've been met with story after story of schools reporting COVID cases, so they have to shut down the next day. And remember Trump's response, and I quote, "It is what it is, and not to worry, this thing's going away sooner rather than later." Today, Vice President Pence said there's going to be a miracle. Matt, we're going to have a miracle. Today's Vice President Pence said there's going to be a miracle. My head is pounding. But first, history was made this week when Democratic Party presumptive presidential nominee Joe Biden officially became the Democratic Party's presidential nominee. He accepted the nod in a rousing speech. That's my editorial. The speech of his long and storied political career. So, Matt, what you think? Were you happy with the first virtual convention?
Well, I think they did a good job. I mean, it's a huge technical feat to try to pull something like that off. I mean, it's hard to pull off any convention, including an in-person one. It's an enormous logistical task. But to try to do something like this on the fly, when it's never been done before, there are just a zillion things that could have gone wrong that didn't. So, it was an impressive feat over the few nights. And, Biden, as you said, gave a very rousing speech, very true to him. Sometimes people give speeches that don't really echo who they are. And, he prosecuted the case against Trump and, made what I think was a very effective case that, he can unify the country and we can go back to some semblance of normal.
I thought they did an extraordinary job. First of all, they didn't, nobody's ever done it. I don't have to tell you how hard something like that is to do. From a technical, logical point of view, just you and I recording like we just had before, often a nightmare. Yeah, there were glitches, of course there were, and there were technical glitches, which I thought that should have been the least of their problems in some ways. But I actually, in a way, liked it better than the old-fashioned kind of forum. It was very personal. I felt like I was in the room. I felt like they were talking to me rather than to a large group.
Right.
And that was very, very, very effective. There were things I would have done differently. Okay, fine. Nothing's perfect. But you know what? They went first. So whatever the, RNC does, big deal because the Dems had to do it first. And I thought that they did a great job. As for Biden, anyone who thought he was senile, frail, or feeble,
yeah,
forget it.
Yeah, that was always a very risky gambit for them, and they clearly lost. I mean, look, he seemed he is in control of his faculties. If anyone doesn't seem in control of their faculties, it's the president. So I thought it was really good. Obviously, some speeches were better than others. The Obamas, I thought, delivered about as perfectly as you could. And I agree with you. The more intimate forum has a lot of appeal. We can get into sort of the future conventions if you want, but I thought they did very well, and most importantly, Biden did.
Let's go to the Obamas, because I think there's the immediate response, and there's going to be a long-term effect to what happened there. And we'll take Michelle first. I know she's beloved, and she did, as a performer myself, I tell you, she did a hell of a job in her quote unquote performance. And, she's a straight shooter. She went for the gusto on straight shooting, and I thought that was great. I'm afraid that both she and the president, former president, who just, geez, Matt, that was rough. That was rough from a former president of the United States. That was tough, rough, ouch, out of character, something never done before. It was great for Democrats. It may spark something in Republicans that I fear on the issue of racism. What do you think?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, those who are racist don't need a speech to be racist. I think they'll get plenty of rousing next week from the Republicans. Now, I thought the thing that Obama and the Obamas did was really raise the stakes. And in fact, Obama used the word stakes in the first 30 seconds of his speech, to make it clear that this was a different kind of election, not just in degree, but of kind. And I thought that they both, because of the intimate forum, were able to do something they couldn't do in a speech. It might have seemed overwrought in a convention hall of thousands cheering. But this I thought worked well, and I think it was startling to hear an ex-president criticize a current president in that way. It's not entirely unprecedented. Teddy Roosevelt turned on his successor, William Howard Taft, and ran against him after having promoted his candidacy originally. But it's shocking for modern sensibilities. But I thought done very effectively, and I think everybody in their heart, who doesn't really love Trump, knew it was true. And that makes a big difference. If he was saying it about someone else, it would be, it might have rang hollow. And I don't know if this is going to galvanize Trump supporters any more than a normal Democratic convention. There was a lot of outreach to Republicans, obviously, having Kasich speak there and all the Republicans who endorsed Biden. So, I know where you're coming from on that, but I thought they did pretty well.
And let me say this, because you said something that I think is interesting. You said that it galvanized. It didn't do anything with Republicans in terms of their feelings about Trump. Fact of the matter is, I learned something this week that I hadn't thought about. I don't remember how it came to me, but the fact is, Matt, Republicans do know who Trump is and his failings. We act like they're like out in the la-la land on this. They are not. They are just overlooking it for a multitude of reasons. It's not one reason. And I want to make that.
I think that's true.
Yeah, and I think we need to make that point clear. In a sense, that makes them even more disgusting. My word. Than on the face of it. Because if you know how truly craven somebody is, and you you ignore it anyway, that's not okay. That makes it worse. If you don't know and you don't understand, that's excusable. But if you do know and you continue to stay there, that's not. there's so much to talk about, and I want to make it try and get it into sensible. The Clintons also were there. I've known Bill Clinton for a long time, and boy, is he getting old and feeble in a way. Isn't he frail?
Well, I think he's aging.
He's aging quick.
Yeah, I wouldn't say feeble at all, but that said, I think the framing Biden did what Clinton did, is framed it as a job interview. Like, is this guy, do you want to re-up this guy's contract? And I think that's always an effective form. I thought the Clintons did pretty well. I thought Hillary's was pretty good. And Clinton's were good. But, they were not in the 10 o'clock hour. They were not really up front in this convention. So
no, and it's a passing of a torch. Or the taking away of one.
Yeah, and it wasn't really. Clinton is better in a hall, and Clinton is, better in the long form. He needs the long guitar solo.
Yeah, but what his problem is his voice.
Yeah, well, he's definitely, his vocal cords sounded.
Yeah, I mean that's and Anthony Fauci, God bless him, had the same problem. He went and had the polyp removed this week.
And I don't think they mic'd him very well.
It's been a problem he's had for a while. Since he had the surgery, the second surgery, it's been a problem. But it does make a difference. Well, and I'm voice conscious, needless to say. But relegated to the cheap seats now, and Hillary's hanging in there trying to remain relevant. And the Rachel Maddows of the world are letting her do that. But I think this is their last hurrah. And it's sad in a way, because you know what? They got beat. They got beaten down.
Yeah, I mean, they have a big legacy, but,
it'll be a while before it comes back.
Yeah, I mean, look, Hillary was probably the only person at the convention who referred to Kamala Harris as a prosecutor. There was mention of her, like helping people in California, but there wasn't really reference to her putting people in jail.
Well, don't worry about that. Trump will take care of that over the next few months. Kamala?
Well, I think it's a net positive that she is a prosecutor, but in today's Democratic Party, you can't say that.
Well, I understand that, but I'm also telling you that Trump is going to turn it on her, big time.
Yeah, he's going to try to depress a black vote by saying she's a prosecutor
and she kept black people in jail, and she yada yada yada. That's why I said what I said. But how do you think she did?
I don't think it was as good a talk as the others, but she didn't. I think the big thing is she didn't seem scary. If you keep calling her super radical left and she doesn't seem scary, that's a plus. And I was a little surprised it was as racially focused as it was, because I think her mere presence sort of in some ways deals with that. But it was good enough.
Yeah.
Now in a way, she didn't do the typical vice presidential thing, which is to be the attack dog, because Obama had basically done it.
Right. They didn't want her to. They want to soften her up a lot. That's clear.
Yeah, we'll see what it's like in a month.
But they want to start by making her, adorable, if you will. You're going to laugh at me.
Yeah, that's a good word. I never laugh at you.
Yes, you laugh at me all
I might laugh with you. I would never laugh at you.
Well, here, I'm going to say something, and it's going to sound really trite, but it's not trite. And it was what she was wearing. I think they really, really, really did her a disservice in how they had her dressed. The color was purple, and it made her
sort of maroonish.
Yeah, and she clashed with the American flag, first of all, so that was just awful. But she blended in versus stood out. And the shoulders were like 1980,
too big,
too padded, and it wasn't necessary. And I'm going to say that I'm tired of pantsuits. I'm glad to see that Jill Biden doesn't wear them that much. I just, that didn't help at all. That didn't help. That didn't have her stand out. She was just very vague in that sense. And pictures everything on the TV. So that's to be said with. Yeah, she's going to be an interesting vice president. I mean, if this is how he has her framed at this point, she's there, but she's not going to be there. I mean, she's not him and his relationship to.
Let's see how that evolves.
Yeah.
I don't think it. This was a soft launch, as they say.
Right. But that says they didn't think she was quite ready for the full launch, and I think that's interesting too.
I mean, like just policy-wise, or?
Well, yeah, like let her take her own, let her make her own statement. She was there very submissive, subdued, submissive, second class to him. It was his show, not her show, I think. But,
Yeah, I mean, it was very different than Palin's intro.
Right, exactly. How about the gals, the Kerry Washington, the Julia Louis-Dreyfus, the Eva Longoria, the Tracy Ellis Ross? Did you like that?
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, I thought, I was worried Kerry Washington isn't eating enough. I sort of kept thinking, like,
yeah, I had the same feeling. She looked like her soup. Either her soup.
Sandwich. But I mean, I think they're all sort of charming in their own way, and I think they all did a good enough job. I mean, Julia Louis-Dreyfus's jokes may have been a little.
They fell flat. Completely.
I mean, it's hard to do stand-up comedy with no audience.
Right.
And when someone's kind of going from these serious topics, and then you're kind of doing a joke, it's just a little awkward. I don't think it was as bad as some people did. I guess I probably thought Longoria probably did the best of them in terms of in terms of just doing the handoffs.
Right.
And
stuff. I agree with you.
But I thought they were all fine. I don't think there was any problems. I mean, it was interesting to have 4 women do it.
Yeah, and they did every ethnic group they could think of. So.
Yeah, well, they could have slipped out one of the African Americans for nation if they were going for.
Well, you're right.
But but yeah, I mean,
Tracy Ellis Ross's father is Jewish and white. So.
Well, that's true. Yeah, no, it was diverse, as they say, but they're all pretty familiar faces, and I thought they did. I thought they did fine.
Yeah, the good thing last night it fell flat, her jokes, but they're coming up as quotes now, and they're hysterical on Twitter. So they gave that's probably a good point. So they come off as great fodder. That just didn't work at the moment. To me, the line of the night was, "I will be an American president." I tweeted that. I cried. Well, I cried anyway. I just kept crying. It was silly. I was crying like an idiot by myself in my room. Oh my God! Did you cry?
I think the effort to project him was kind and is unifying and is not crazy like our current. I just think that all worked pretty well. And
it was.
By the end, I was almost a little worried he spends too much time on the phone calling.
Oh, come on.
No, I liked it, but there were so many examples of that I thought it was no, he was very good. And I thought the whole theme of the convention that way was very
good. There's the couple of things I want to talk about here also. The Braden Harrington young man, the stutterer.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now, let me tell you why in every way, shape, or form, that was amazing to me for the kid. The kid was extraordinary. And what Joe Biden did for that child was he made his life. He made that kid's life. That kid will always be the boy who had the courage to go before the nation and stutter and tell his story. And I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry now. But it changes his life forever. That's the importance of those phone calls, because.
And it was a reflection of Biden's life.
Well, I'm going to get to that in a second. But it also is the power of, a true leader. It also is, wow. Can you imagine Trump he calls Rush Limbaugh and says, I'll give you a medal because you're dying.
Well, it's also because everyone knows Trump is capable of making fun of a kid like that.
Well, and that's when the New York Times reporter, when he went after him, remember that image? That was kept running through my head.
Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
I think every parent
right.
who has a kid with a disability, and everyone who knows a kid with a disability knows that.
I had a lisp when I was a kid. Did I ever tell you that? Oh, God.
Don't think so.
Yeah, no, they used to make such fun. I spent my entire childhood with my sibylliness, taking it on the chin. So I guess maybe I relate more to other people. Funny that I wound up in the talk business. But so that was just very moving to me on that level, and that connection will change that child's life forever. He will never be the victim to. But he also brilliantly, and they did this throughout the entire time, they diffused all of Trump's arguments against him. Feeble, he stutters. I dare you, Trump, to start making fun of him falling over his words about Biden. And they brought Hunter Biden in and plowed right past what they know is coming on Ukraine. And I thought whoever did that understood that, diffused Trump's entire fight against Biden. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I don't think it was in Biden's character to want to hide Hunter.
Well, that's a point well made, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna, I don't think he would have countenanced that, but I think it does. Yeah, it does show that there's no fear about him.
Right. Well, yeah, but it's fascinating to me who Biden is. I met Biden once. Have you met him? I assume you've met him a lot.
Oh, I know him pretty. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And
covered him, know him personally from different situations, and Hunter too.
Okay. So the first time that I met him, or the time that I met him, he was in his most handsome years. And he was dressed to the nines. He was fit as a fiddle. And I was just taken aback by how perfect he was.
Oh, Jesus. Is Steve Bullock going to get jealous of this?
No, I say this for a reason. My family is friendly, with the Clintons, or was. They're all gone now. But not the Clintons, my family. Clinton was, in person, in his heyday, was one of the most handsome men that ever walked the face of the earth. I mean, he photographs terribly, because when you met this guy in person, particularly in his heyday, you went, huh? I mean, it was stupid. He was so gorgeous. Biden was perfect. Biden was like, everything was crisp and it was fascinating. I like the way he's aged. That's my point.
Oh, yeah.
I like
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he looks better now than in some of those comb-over pictures.
Right. And he when he first appeared, when he was going to run in the beginning, we all talked about how bad he looked. He doesn't look as bad anymore. Have you noticed? So they were either putting more filler in his face, he's getting in the sun, so he's got a little bit of a tan, or they're putting a shitload of makeup on him. And he looks like he gained a little weight in his face. That's why I think they've been pumping him up with filler. He looked good last night. He looked good.
Well, he's got a little more spring in his step.
Yeah.
I think winning does that for you.
Yeah, I guess. And a point that to be well made. His daughter Ashley doesn't make a lot of appearances. I think that was one of the first times I've actually, what a pretty girl that I've really seen her. And they all bubble. They're all full of Irishness. They're a wonderful family, the grandchildren and everything. I'm an old sap for whether it's BS or not. Let's get it. But anyway, at the end of the day, it was vote for me. I'm not a sociopath. That's what I took away from the whole thing. The other thing I took away is that if you re-elect Trump, you become Belarus.
Yeah, I think that's what they raised the stakes. I think the Obamas and Biden and others have raised the stakes that he's, Colin Powell and others, that he's, this guy is, you give him 4 more years and it's going to be worse than the previous 4 in terms of
Oh my God. I want to go to this. I mentioned it briefly, I think, and that is the return of God to the Democratic Party. I actually saw some pundits former Republicans saying it was lovely to have God at the Democratic convention because God hasn't appeared in a long time. Now, I'm not one to wear that kind of religious thing, and I think politics and God, should be their separate ways. That said, because it's such an issue because of the evangelicals, I thought it was a good thing that they spent so much time on Biden's Catholicism and his religious bent. And but I don't know where it was posted. I just was aware of it that Franklin Graham, who was pro-Trump all the way, wrote a piece about the absence of God, which tells me he wrote it before last night.
Right. Well, he's busy these days. Or not busy. Yeah, no, absolutely. It was more overtly religious than previous ones in recent years, and obviously it's a very different approach to Catholicism than 60 years ago when John Kennedy ran and said, my religion has nothing to do with my
Well, that's because you couldn't be Catholic back in the day.
Right.
Any more than you could be Jewish,
And this would be only the second Catholic president.
Good point. Yeah, absolutely. So I don't, that's, you see, what's happening?
I think it just to add on.
Good.
I think people like their presidents to have religious faith, but they're not.
They don't want it in their faith. Right.
What the faith is.
Right.
Like, as long as you're on your knees, you can be a Baptist like Clement Gore, and you can be a Methodist, born an Episcopalian like George W. Bush. They just like some faith.
Yes. And I think that's okay, I guess. But
yeah,
when you find Franklin Graham the day after posting an op-ed about there's no religion in the Democratic Party when there was obviously religion brought in, it's a clue that that's one of the things that they're going to start really messing around with. And again, I think that's a really stupid. They're grasping at straws. Trump is grasping at everything he throws out. All the mud turns to sand and flips to the ground, and that's it. Won't stick.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to go back to tried and true things. Tax. I mean, if you're Republicans, I would just go back to taxes. And
well, they're doing that too. Every other tweet from Ronna McDaniel is they're going to raise your taxes 89%.
Yeah, well, that's always been a good, been a good one for them.
Well, yeah, we'll see how far that goes. You were listening to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts weekly at hallicasserjayne.com and is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Be sure to find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on all your favorite apps. You can find the Halli Casser-Jayne Show on your Alexa device, too. Just say, the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. Oh, and come play with me on Twitter at the Halli CJ Show. Did the Dems say what they would do? What they will do? Did they spend enough time on their agenda, or was it too much time on Trump? Peggy Noonan this morning had a piece in the Wall Street Journal. Her Republicanism was coming out. She can't help herself. Attack dog. Did they do enough to say what they would do? And is it important? And her thesis is the election is on what they will do, not on Trump. I don't believe that's true, but okay. What are your thoughts?
Well, I do think it was a little light on policy in the speeches. And that might have been a problem in a regular election, but it's so much an election about Trump and Trump's,
Trump
demeanor. Yeah, it's about Trump. So, if you drill deeper on green energy, or
people's eyes will, people's eyes will roll. I mean, that's the reality of it.
Yeah, I think like normally an explainer in chief like Clinton and Obama, that stuff is good in a normal year, but it's not a normal year. So I don't think it was missing that much.
No, I don't either. Let's go to the post office and that crap.
Right.
Guys, what's his name? Louis DeJoy?
Yeah, Louis DeJoy, right.
What a name.
It's one of the better names, you know.
He's testifying as we speak this morning, and he's not going to lighten up. There was a small report yesterday about Wall Street putting bank things, you know, what are those things called? I don't use them when you go up and get your money from that little box. ATMs into the post offices. Jamie Dimon. They're going for privatizing. Now, this is the end of August almost, right?
Wait, ATMs are privatized. Wait, what do you mean?
Jamie Dimon wants to make is trying to cut a deal to put his machines in the U.S. Postal post offices.
To put ATMs in post offices.
Yes. Yeah. Which is just another, you know.
Well, that doesn't seem that bad to me. I mean,
well, it does because it's missing. You know, it's private enterprise versus public enterprise, and
yeah, but I mean, they have private concessionaires at national parks. I don't think it's like the end of the world.
You talk to people in the Park Service, and they go, "I worked with the Park Service for 4 years, for almost 5 years. I can tell you, they hate that kind of stuff. They hate it."
Okay.
But that said, here we are, and this is a mess, and this is definitely going to affect the election. And Trump yesterday said, I'm going to have sheriffs and lawyers and all those people are going to public. You're not going to get away with stealing this election, Democrats. And the polls are showing that people are buying that it's not going to be a safe election. And come on, this is like major. Now, Nancy pulled everybody in, so they're back. And I don't know what they plan to do about it. Do you? What can they do?
I think one is to publicly grill them. You know, second is try to, you know, do whatever you can in Congress to thwart the changes. And I think the third is, you know, litigate. States attorneys general are already going to court over this. I'm sure a lot of private plaintiffs will try to get into court over it. And, you know, they'll say it's a conspiracy to steal the election. And there is evidence to that effect.
You think?
So, yeah. So I think it's, you know, once again, Trump says what he's thinking. It's like when he told Lester Holt he fired Comey over Russia. Now he's just saying, you know, I'm doing this because of the election. There's not even the pretense that they're trying to make the post office better or something.
I go back to my original question. How do they stop it?
Well, as I said, I think litigation is one way.
Well, you got a couple of months. What kind of litigation? I mean, you got Trump's tax returns. What the courts? What courts? The courts take their time. They don't give a crap. You know, everybody else is on full speed ahead. And forgive me because I'm going to go on a rant now because I'm really pissed off at the courts because they get away with, delay, do it in their own time all the time, and with because they're the judges in the court. When, the whole system is up in arms only because the court is not dealing with this quickly and effectively. And that just enrages me like you can't believe, the games that they're playing in New York with Trump's tax returns. So now it's going to go back and it's going to languish, because the guy's maybe, the guy got to go play golf. I'm not going to be in court on Friday. Enough. I mean, this is why all of this is the way it is. Trump got away with it because of the courts, Matt. Everything where we are today is because the courts don't act quickly and effectively and responsibly. Because they're higher than thou, they're better than the rest of us. This frosts me. So I don't see whatever Nancy says and whatever the Dems say. It's like on the thing with the Russia thing. We'll talk about that in a minute. What do we get? We get nowhere. Nothing changes. You can scream and rant and rave and he'll do it because you can't stop him with the only effective means to stop anything he's doing illegally through the courts. Okay, I'm done.
Okay. You should tell us how you really feel.
Well, I'm not wrong about that, am I?
No, I mean...
The wheels of justice turn slowly are wrong.
You asked me what they're doing. I didn't say it was effective.
Well, that's my point.
Trump controls the executive branch. I mean, that makes a difference. And look, it's not just the courts that failed. I mean, impeachment failed.
Well, impeachment failed because of the courts. Impeachment failed because of the courts, because you couldn't get anybody to testify because you had to take it to court, and it would have taken longer than to put the impeachment up. That's what failed.
No, they had.
I'm not saying that's the only reason. That's very black and white.
A lot of subpoena powers they didn't didn't exercise or try to enforce themselves.
Well, like for instance, who what's his name? Was it the chief of staff? Who was the guy that they wanted, or the lawyer they wanted? Last week it came down. He can testify. What's his name? I forgot. McGahn. So what? We're going back to January and February, and this is August, and that's when the court responded?
I'm just saying.
I know. I'm not yelling at you. I'm just saying this needs...
Impeachment is a congressional prerogative. They exercised it, and it didn't work.
Get that.
Yes, the courts were not their sworn allies in this, but that's...
they aren't in it. I'm not blaming the failure. I'm saying the system is not working because the courts are not working. Not just in impeachment, post office, tax returns, you name it. It's a game. The court.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with that.
I know.
There have been times when the courts have acted swiftly. They shut down the travel ban very quickly until the Supreme Court said it was okay. Now, you may disagree with that decision, but the courts did act swiftly.
They pick and choose. How come? I'm not wrong. Well,
if you can complain that justice turns slowly, if you want to say the courts are all bought and paid for, that doesn't.
I didn't say that. That didn't come out of my mouth. You didn't hear me.
Okay,
I didn't say that.
That's what you were suggesting.
No, I wasn't. I was suggesting simply that the court system needs an overhaul for the 21st century. It is working like it's like 1890.
Well, that is the nature of it. There's a reason these death penalty cases go on for decades.
It's crazy stuff. It's just crazy stuff, and it's irresponsible, and they do use it, if you want, to their own political gain. The court, if you're a Republican, conservative court like we have in the Supreme Court right now, they play games too. I'm just saying, I'm so tired of the court being held to some higher standard. They lost that standard a long time ago.
Okay.
That's where I am on that. But back to the issue at hand here. There's nothing they can do to stop this Louis DeJoy, because he's having a joyride with the help of, now it turns out to be, what's his name? The Treasury Secretary was involved in this pick of him.
Yeah.
Ugly stuff. Ugly. Money changing hands. Okay, let's talk money. Let's because I'm going to go off on a rant again if we don't get out of this one in a hurry. Gosh. Our good friend yesterday gets arrested. Hauled off. Mr. Steve Bannon. Off the $9 billion yacht to the pokey, baby. What, did you see that one coming?
No. Did not see that.
That's pretty cool. That was a moment. We build the wall. Brian Colfage, Florida man, another Florida man, Matt.
Right.
This really, right? This is like living. This is a horrible place. Whatever happened to my beautiful Florida? Oh my God. What do you make of this? Did this have anything to do with Jeff Berman being disbarred by Mr. Barr, if you will?
Well, there may be a connection. Jeff Berman, for people that don't know, was the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, the really important job that a lot of famous people have had, like Rudy Giuliani. He stepped down under pressure from Bill Barr, the Attorney General, earlier this summer. I think, whatever the origins of the case, it's proof once again that there's so much kind of grifting going on in the Trump administration. That sort of people trying to score extra money. Whether it's cabinet officers who have left because they were using the resources of the government for their own advantage, whether it was Flynn taking money from the Turkish government right up to the time he was going into the White House. Now, Steve Bannon, I mean, there's just this kind of grifter aspect that I think is ultimately their undoing.
Well, all of his top people have either been indicted, thrown in the pokey, or will be, or under suspicion, or like a Mike Flynn guy. I mean,
well, definitely from the campaign, Manafort. And
the only one left is Trump.
Yes, and he's under a lot of heat on those fronts. But yeah, look, Bannon, I would not have put money on Bannon being on a 150-foot yacht with a Chinese national fugitive and getting pulled off the boat.
That moment when he walked out in jail.
For a scam to build a private section of the wall.
He pocketed $1 million.
What happened to Mexico paying for the wall?
Yeah, well,
now
yeah.
we have like foundations for the wall.
Well, listen, this guy Brian Colfage, after he's arrested and whatever, now he says he wants to. You can rent my donor list or buy it. How much? How much you going to give me for it? I mean, this is true. This is true.
No, it's.
This is true. And Trump stands up there when he's asked about it and goes, "Well,
yeah, that's.
Why do people accept this in the Republican Party? Why do they accept it?
That's a question we've asked a lot.
I know, and I'm never going to stop asking it until I get an answer. I mean, Hillary was talking about the Republican Senate and what did she call them, zombies? I forget what the term was that she used, but she said they're like walking around like, who, me? What? Huh? What? These are not the people she served with, she says. I don't think I see Marco Rubio, who, by the way, was involved with this Colfage thing in a way because he apparently was, pushing their cause for them here in Florida. It makes you wonder if they're not all bought and paid for by somebody or something. Because it is black and white how involved they all are in it. Yeah? You think I'm nuts? No, you don't.
Well, I think there's a lot of, grifting. That doesn't mean, but it's grifting on their own, when the Interior Secretary's, spending taxpayer money on all these nefarious things and has to resign. That doesn't mean he's bought and paid for. It just means he's, taking money he shouldn't.
It's just
I don't think Bannon is bought and paid for, but that doesn't mean he's not stealing.
By the way, I wanted to do this and I didn't have time to do it yesterday, but you know how they keep saying that Trump said that he hasn't had anything to do with Bannon in a long time. That's not true. Bannon's been conversing with him. Somebody got to get the White House phone records, if you will, or Trump's cell phone or whatever. I know there's, he's been working with him up until recently. Interesting, 2 weeks ago, the Mercers were emphatic that they weren't giving, and who brought Bannon into the Trump campaign, by the way. And they're the gazillionaires. So a couple of weeks ago, they said, no money. Goodbye. Good luck. So what did they know, and when did they know? And by the way, what did Trump know, and when did he know it? You got to talk about this stuff, because you may not have answers to the questions, but sometimes the questions are as important as the answers.
Sure. Well, yeah, now the prosecutors are asking them.
So we're going to find out, and I hope sooner rather than later. I wanted to go to Russia and the Senate investigation, because I think this is probably, take all that stuff that we've just spent the last 45 minutes or so talking about, and Matt, oh my God. Senate Russia investigation. It's a bipartisan investigation in the Senate Intel Committee. And they've got collusion, hook, line, and sinker, whether or not Rick Scott from Florida or Marco Rubio from Florida want to admit it. This should be huge, and it's not. Talk to me.
Yeah, well, they were very strong findings from this. The fact that it came from a bipartisan panel, it came from a Republican chairman of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, gave it a lot of weight. Saying that the Trump campaign really did reach out to the Russians, that they were proactive. They didn't just have stuff dumped in their lap, which would have been bad enough, but this was worse. So, yeah, it's a big deal. But, in the Trump era, these things come so fast and frequently that they often don't land with the punch that they should.
But I ask you this, and that is, Democrats could make true hay out of this. And I think instead Nancy went home. I'm just wondering about the choice here and whether it's too late to make hay out of it, whether it will become something relevant as we go along. But I just think it's too big a story to get lost in the maelstrom of too many crazy stories out there that nobody would believe anyway. Well,
she did bring Congress back.
Yes, but not because right, and to do nothing. But that's my editorial opinion. Sorry, you know how I feel about that.
Well, we've had this conversation a lot about, like, are the Democrats doing enough on X, Y, or Z?
Right. By the way, if you want to talk about Nancy, she was kind of like a second thought on that whole convention thing, I thought.
Yeah, she and Schumer did not have a big role.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting there. But that Senate Russia investigation, folks, pay attention to that. That could be powerful, given the right moment, used the right way, if the Democrats should be so inclined. Yeah,
could be, but they've already done a lot of it. I mean, they didn't mention Russia a lot in the convention.
Well, I think they're saving it. How's that? That's my thought. That goes.
Think so. I think they know
what
it's
if they
not
go
polling.
up? What if it goes on to Hunter?
Well, then they'll push back, but I don't think it's polled well, and I don't think they're going to push it that much.
Yeah,
I mean, we did have an impeachment over it, and I don't think we're going to.
Well, it turns out that he should have been impeached.
It's going to come up in the fall. I just don't think.
You don't think it's going to be huge?
No, I don't think it's going to be huge, and I don't think a committee report is going to be bigger than impeachment.
Okay. All right. We'll see. The virus.
I mean, it should be, but
I'm just, like I said, I think there are some things that are in their back pockets for a rainy day, and this may be one of them. That's what I'm thinking, because it's collusion. In fact, absolutely. What Mueller wasn't willing to do or wouldn't go far enough to do, this report shows. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I know what you're saying. I just don't think it's good.
Well, so we'll see what happens with that one. Let's go to the virus. It's scary down here. I'll tell you why it's scary down here, because there's nobody you talk to down here who doesn't know that they're playing with the numbers big time. If you look at graphs of all the states, of all the world, and see how this thing ebbs and flows, the one thing it never does is come down from 1,500 cases a day to 1,000 cases a day steadily without a blip going up and down or anything in between. So suddenly, now it turns out the numbers are really screwed up, that DeSantis has stopped them from putting the numbers in from here, from there, from everywhere. People are just up in arms. I'm hoping it is ebbing because people are wearing masks and stuff. But we know how this virus works now. It goes up, it comes down, it goes up, it's come down. And, of course, we're all scared to death what's going to happen when the flu season starts. But, of course, we don't have to worry about it because Vice President Pence told us a miracle's coming.
Right.
Trump declared teachers essential workers, which means that if there are COVID cases in their classrooms, they have to stay there. A story that should be front and center, and it's not. Why is that? That's a question.
I don't have a good answer for you.
It's freaky, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I mean, ultimately, these school districts are going to decide on their own.
Well, they can't. Not in this state.
Well, Trump doesn't have the power to compel teachers to show up around the country.
No, but DeSantis does in this state. That's what he's. Yeah, I mean, they're in court with the guy right now about it, the teachers, because they're going, "What are you, crazy?" But the point is, if it's a Republican state, then you know what's going to happen. If it's a Democratic state, you know what's going to happen.
I wouldn't be totally sure about that. Let's see.
But it's pretty disgusting to declare not to give these teachers a choice when they're so, right there. I mean, DeSantis this morning said that there was a lower risk for school-age children than the flu. And we all know that's not true, because every report has shown that kids, if the kids hadn't been exposed because they were all at home And now that they're getting back out in the public, they're getting it as much as anybody else. And they're spreading it more, apparently, according to, the CDC people even. They hold more of the virus in their systems so that they can spread it. They're good spreaders, kids. That's, I guess, the best way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's...
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, what were you going to say? I'm getting riled up here.
I know you're getting riled up. Well, the school thing's a mess. I mean, it's a mess for parents. It's a mess for educators. I don't think there's really been a good plan for how to do this if they do open them up.
The thing about it is this, Matt. This is, like I said, the end of August. This is all about Trump getting the economy going again. How much could the kids go back to school? People are going to start voting next week, I think. The first states. So what is it worth the risk here? Because he's not going to get his V on the economy between now and October. It's just, the whole thing is just nuts. Georgia State quarterback, by the way, announced he has a heart condition from COVID. So he can't, this young man, right? He won't be able to play this year. We don't know how many. That's where we're exposing people to here. It's really, it's not okay. It's not okay. In the interest of time, let me run to this because I want to talk to you about this. I think there is something very dangerous going on right now for Biden's election, and I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on it. There's all this brouhaha that's going on in Portland and in inner cities in Chicago, just getting worse by the day. And the Dems have their way of handling it. And for instance, in Portland, it's fuel for Trump.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I mean, I think the spike in the crime rate in major cities and then the particular culture of Portland that's led to these, ongoing civil unrest that hasn't abated that much in weeks is, sure, it's fodder for Trump. But he's the incumbent. So, I think it's hard to argue, well, Trump's got the ability to calm all this down. I think people know that he's the source of some of it. And in any event, it's happening on his watch, not Biden's.
See, I don't think that's how the story plays to the public. I think that's how it plays to eggheads like you and I who are constantly, in the.
You think they just see this as like, crazy liberals?
Yes, I do.
It's chaos.
Yes.
And Trump is safety. And
yes.
Security.
Yes. Yeah. That's how I see it. I absolutely do see it like that, and that concerns me greatly. And I think it's short-sighted to think that they think in any different way, which is why they can't make headway, with some of those folks. So yeah, I think this is a tinderbox. With all respect to California fires, by the way. Yeah.
Are you switching to California?
No,
fires?
I said I said tinderbox.
I see. Yeah. Well, I know what you're saying, and that's definitely possible. I just think Trump, if there were a different personality, I think they could benefit from it. But Trump is so clearly Royals, fans the flames of these things. Excuse me, I'm not sure it'll work as well.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. But I thought that was another one that's out there that could prove a problem.
People start blowing up George Washington statues en masse. That'll be bad.
You think? Oh my God, I think. Trump's brother is being buried or having a funeral at the White House today. That's different. California on fire. I'm glad that we brought that up. I hope you guys are all right out there. It's a horror what's going on. I've been in the middle of those things. It's terrifying. 2 hurricanes are headed for the Gulf. Oh boy, that puts me on the wrong side of that storm because we get the wind. The world is coming to an end. What did we miss, darling? What did we miss?
I think we covered a lot.
Do you think? Did we think
it's been a full hour?
It's been
I think we covered a lot.
We did it. Next week, we will give Matt time to think, to answer the question: what is Joe Biden, his good friend, really like?
What's he real? Okay, yeah, sure.
So
I'll throw in a few things there.
We'll put that on the top of our list.
We'll have the Republican festivities too,
and we will have the Republican festivities to have a good chuckle about. That's it, my friend. Have a wonderful week.
Okay, dear. All right. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a production of RESEC LLC. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, and is available at hallicasserjayne.com and on all your favorite apps. Be sure to visit us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and follow me on Twitter at The Halli CJ Show. Until next time, this is Halli Casser-Jayne.